Hello and welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey. Today I'm joined by Tara once again to talk about Scream 2022 or 5 Cream or Screams with the stylized S that looks like a 5 at the end. It's just Scream. Again, like always, if you like the videos, like them, subscribe. It helps the channel out on podcast services. There's the audio only feed if you're into that kind of thing instead. Other than that, let's get to it. Hey Tara, welcome back.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going. We are now, what's convenient about this is I didn't have to change the framing for us because this movie's just called Scream. So I didn't really have to do anything. So we are talking about Scream 2022 or 5 Cream or Scream stylized S as a 5. I think that's probably the way they should have done it, but
Yeah.
they're doing a specific thing where it's a requel, and they're doing they're doing the legacy thing with Halloween and whatnot. So I understand why they didn't do it, but I think it would have been cool if it was called Screams and it was just a 5 at the end.
Right? Like, and even like I, re-looked it up on IMDb just for a super quick refresher, and like it just, it literally comes up just to Scream, like 2022. I was like, oh, it's not as much fun.
No, that is very cold. But
Should have pulled like those 7 vibes and just had that, little bit of like the change in between.
Well, I just like it's in Scream 2, like the logo for Scream 2 on the box is the bold font with the 2, but in the movie it's the tearing effect. And if they just did that, like I would have been cool with that, but
it would have been great.
I didn't make the movie.
That's okay. Still enjoyable anyways.
Yeah. What did you, this is where differentiating from the other episode where they're old movies and we don't care about spoilers. We're going to start no spoilers on this one.
Okay.
And then we will get into spoilers. What did you think about this movie on a top level?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, I would say, like as a thing of its own in a lot of ways.
My Scream
throwbacks. Yeah. I liked the throwbacks to like some stuff, but I liked the trying to reintroduce some stuff, and then the requelness of a lot of it I think is handled really well. And so I enjoyed a lot of that aspects of it, trying to keep like spoilers free possible, being like
you gotta dance around stuff. Like
it was, I don't know, a lot of the characters are handled very interestingly. Like I did have some of like it spoiled for myself, so keeping that in mind, like it was impossible to stay
I technically
away from
did,
the internet.
but forgot by the time I didn't like. Peek behind the curtain. We're recording this in May, so the movie came out months ago, and this possibly is not going live until October. So there's got to be another gap. But yeah, it's like the gap between when this movie came out, where I immediately had it spoiled for me, I forgot entirely about it. And that's sometimes brain farts are like a benefit. It's fine.
Yeah, it was hard too, because I know there was at least a couple people, because I follow a lot of horror people on Twitter, like horror critics and filmmakers and like stuff like that. So
the Fango crowd.
When it did come out, like it was very hard to stay away from the spoilers in a certain sense, because there was a couple of very lively trolls that were, anybody said anything about this movie and they were posting like screenshots.
Dumbledore dies.
Like, underneath like everything. So like it was pretty hard to I think I watched most of the film before I had a chance to finish it, and so I did know who was murdering people, but it still was, I don't know, like the reveal was like half the fun with that, kind of like in that sense too. Like it's really enjoyable. Like I did really like this movie.
Yeah, so like I think that this movie does what 4 was kind of trying to do better.
I agree.
This is, I legit think this is basically as good of a movie as the first one,
Hmm.
but because the first one is so influential, like it gets that
Yeah.
little boost. But this movie recaptures something that the first movie had that none of the other entries has been able to do. I think it's the
Hmm.
best shot movie of the franchise. I think
Yeah.
it is the best performed movie of the franchise.
Yeah.
It has, there is, without going into specifics yet, an actually emotional kill that like means
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
So it's, I think that it, in the fact that it is parodying these legacy sequels that try to give a little bit more modern oomph to a thing that we've just kind of like loved for a long time.
Yeah.
No matter how like the original Halloween I adore, it is very low budget and you can see the seams on it and it's schlocky a little bit and it is what it is. But like Halloween 2018, it was just like as schlocky as that is, we're just taking it and
Yeah.
as if that
Yeah.
was made 2 days ago, we're making a movie that's made today that follows it up. And I
Yeah.
think that this
Yeah.
does a good job capturing that while also just like pointing at it at the same time.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like it has that same sort of like meta-ness to it, and it knows what it's. I don't know. I just enjoy the fact that it knows what it's doing, and it's just like taunting you with that almost, like being like, we know that you're kind of watching for everything or you're paying attention to stuff, and we're gonna. So yeah, like it's enjoyable in that sort of like sense, basically.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't think of this as a spoiler really, but we'll get to the spoilers anyway. But like the fact that it is now putting a spotlight onto the things like toxic fandom for like
Yeah.
horror movies, but like also Star Wars and like that's everywhere now. So like
Yeah.
I appreciate that angle that they went for. I think they could have set it up for who that is attached to a little bit better maybe, but like I still
Hmm.
think that it's handled pretty well. And I will say like definitively like now we're starting the spoilers.
Yeah.
But
Spoiler alert.
yeah, so we like this is I didn't say it up top, but I'm gonna put time codes until like this is now the spoiler alert. But it's the fact that they did the boyfriend again. Like
Hmm.
I appreciate the fact that they're doing the legacy sequel, and
Yeah.
that's when they brought that back.
Yeah.
Because if it happened in like it sort of happened with the significant other aspect in 4, but
Yeah.
like not the same way, not as directly. Like
Yeah.
the boyfriend of Emma Roberts in that movie isn't the main
Yeah.
character. So yeah.
No. Like, and he was barely in it. I actually forgot that he was in some of it, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that, like I said, like there was very like in your face kind of like playing with that sort of like stereotypical like having the boyfriend be in, and they almost like. I think I would have enjoyed if they leaned into that in the fourth, but like this one really leaned into it. It was just like, yeah, it's the boyfriend again. Like surprise.
David
But
Arquette straight up says
I
it. Like it's
yeah.
it's the boyfriend. Look at the
Yep.
boyfriend first. Yeah.
Yeah. And just I don't know, like getting somebody like Jack Quaid to play this like character who is like the most like,
Likable
he has
guy.
this whole like he
Yeah.
has this whole run on the boys of being sort of like that innocent sort of like you know I
Let's
want to say
like in the first movie, Billy seems like the guy who does it. And
yeah.
then they even catch him as the guy that does it. And then
Yeah.
the reveal is that he's the guy that does it. So
Yeah.
like the fact that they like that's how they flipped it. They still did
Yeah.
the boyfriend, but they flipped it in the way that's like, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
want it to be him because it's
He
Jack
was
Quaid.
almost and it's funny
He's
because like
the only good one in that damn family.
there's
Well,
almost like
Meg Ryan's great.
yeah, right. Yeah. and it's funny because there's almost like a Dewey-esque sort of like parody between the two as well. Like his character very much is that Dewey sort of like character, like that
Yeah.
bumbling sort of like dumbass, like, you know, like really lovable sort of like character, but not the person that you'd be like, yeah, you're gonna have my back in like a fight or whatever.
Right.
So having him go full psycho at the end was so satisfying. Like it really was. Like it was like a just it was well done. Like he was well done in that.
And that's, and speaking of like him going psycho and stuff, I think that the the kills in this movie are the most gruesome this franchise has had.
Oh yeah.
Like I in the first, like I don't think any of the ones in 4 are really that intense, but like in 1, 2, and 3 they can be intense. But like even in 1, they can get like a little cartoony, like saw machine. Like the garage door is just like, it's iconic.
Yeah.
But it's also like, all right, the garage door would actually just shut itself.
And yeah, even like Drew Barrymore like hanging there, you know, with the guts and everything. That was the most like,
it's the smash cut
shocking.
that makes it more shocking than
yes, than the actual like setup.
Yeah, and where this has, like I said, the emotional kill is Dewey. Yeah. Which is just like, when I'm watching a Scream movie, I don't expect, like, I will expect to be like, haha, good time, ha. I was legit like, no. Like, he's the heart of the franchise. Like, Sydney's the main character of, like, the franchise, but Dewey is the heart and soul of this franchise.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it was funny to see him almost be like you bring up like the remake of like Halloween, but like that Laurie sort of like character where it's like
the gruff older version of
I don't want to put up with this stuff anymore, like
I'm too old for this shit.
Like thing. Yeah, basically. So it was interesting to see him kind of be that, and even to have him, you know, like his character like stylized with like the gray and like looking rough and like, you know, being that sort of downtrodden, sort of lost sort of like character. I think his death felt very like surprising in that way, because he didn't really get a redemption arc. Like him and Gail had like the sort of conversation where they wrapped up some of like
of every movie.
Their stuff, but like it just like it was, you know, like cutting off your nose to spite your face. It was like, oh my gosh, like it's just,
and I think that's the only character that this would work with. Yeah, like I
agree.
They could kill off Gail, they could kill off Sydney, and while that would be like, oh wow, that's surprising, it wouldn't it just wouldn't hold the same impact as this. Yeah, because like I feel like we don't really, like, Sydney's the final girl, but like I don't know if we ever feel bad for her after the first movie. Like the first movie, like the shit that goes on, like you clearly feel bad for that character. It's fucking terrible. But like in the whole franchise, I think that they only ever give empathy to Dewey, because like dude gets stabbed every damn movie. He like he says it in this movie that he's like lost so much feeling because of the nerve damage he's just, like it's almost a part where it is like putting him out of his misery. And they actually handle it in an honorable, they give him the most gruesome death in the movie and the franchise, which is like horror movie, like 21 gun salute. And then on top of that, to have the ghost face at that point say it was an honor, like they genuinely handled that with care, which you kind of don't expect with like the 5th entry in a slasher franchise, like of anything. Like you're not going back to like Halloween 5 and being like they handled anything with care in this. So it's I think that those things, like, it's just like I said with Scream 4, how it's like it's the most competent movie after the first movie. This is so much more than that, where it's like, legitimately, if the first movie wasn't the first Scream movie,
Yeah.
I would say that this is the best, or my favorite movie it's probably the best movie in the franchise,
Yeah.
honestly, in my opinion. But like,
And I would definitely be inclined to agree with that too. Like it is a very enjoyable, like just overall, like it's pretty great.
yeah, I it's such a weird thing to like try to, even with spoilers, because like I don't want to like ruin some things, even though we're gonna
Yeah.
like talk about spoilers. But I just think like the whole vibe of this movie is really cool too, because thank God they brought back Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was severely missing in 4. As much as I say
Hmm.
4 is one of the better movies in the franchise, no Nick Cave is a big no.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
what like, even if it's in the credits, like it's gotta be there. And so to
Yeah.
have like the first real kill in the movie, because the first kill isn't a kill,
Yeah.
but which is also interesting. Like that's not how these movies are supposed to start.
No, which was it was a weird choice in that sort of like sense too.
Well, yeah, and that's how they marketed the movie, was like, here's the opening, here's the phone
Yeah.
call opening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciate how they're playing into that legacy sequel thing with
Yeah.
like, they're honoring the rules but tweaking them just a little bit. They're still
Yeah.
going to do
Like
an
you,
attack to start it. They're not just going to like open on a pan open of like whatever environment they're
yeah.
in. So it's, yeah, I appreciate that they're finding new ways to handle the things that they're already doing.
Yeah, especially with the openings. Like you don't want to watch the same thing like over and over again, have like how, 4 was fun because it did that bait and switch with like, is this actually the opening? Are these the characters? Are these different characters? But like yeah, it was enjoyable that they kind of changed it up and you know, yeah, like you don't yeah, there's sometimes where like you want that nostalgia sort of like factor and I think 4 really tried to tap into that, but this one realized that it's not necessarily the nostalgia that you're kind of like going with, it's the fandom. Like people are looking at these and analyzing them and dissecting them, like those are the bits that you're kind of wanting to enjoy with stuff, right? So
Yeah, it's less about trying to recapture the thing and more about trying to make a good thing that follows that up for the people who like it. Like
yeah.
4, I think is a little bit more of like, here's more Scream, whereas like this is just a good movie that happens to
Yeah.
be in that franchise, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really stoked with how this movie came out. This is one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I wish I could have seen it earlier. It didn't work out that way because
Yeah.
there was a big spike.
Yeah.
You had everything shut down around you when this movie came out. So yeah,
Pretty much, yep, yep. And that's the thing. I think that's the one thing that I mostly regret about it is it not being able to see it in a theater and
right.
like enjoying like that communal aspect like of this film because it did feel like slightly robbed like not watching this even like with my one like friend who the two of us really adore like watching like horror movies and stuff together like
Yeah.
yeah it felt like unfortunate sort of like in that sense of especially like you said like with Dewey's death and like with some even the deaths like at the end like she gets hit with hand sanitizer and then she gets lit on fire. That
Yeah,
was great.
that was
I was so excited.
that was so that the Amber death is
Hmm.
a very silly death.
Oh,
But like in the best way, where it's just like at first she like, it's a, first of all, it's a hand sanitizer that's in a glass bottle, which is
hmm.
like,
Hmm.
it's
The
a that is
fancy
a
hand sanitizer. Yep.
that is a bougie way to go about that. But
Yep.
like, I love that they played it for laughs at first,
Yeah.
and then they turned up the intensity, because like
Yep.
when she gets hit with the hand sanitizer bottle and it shatters on her and it's just like goop all over her face, and she just goes,
Yep.
the hand sanitizer, like just the way
Yep.
she reacts.
Yep.
And then like I was like, why did they turn the
Doc-
stove on?
Not gonna lie, the minute she got hit with the hand sanitizer, I was like, "That's flammable," and then it led into it, and I was so thrilled.
Well,
Although
that's the
the
thing is,
fact
I
that,
didn't.
yeah,
It spread out just enough that I like didn't connect the two
yeah,
because like when
which,
she's because they say oh and they they give
yeah,
Amber takes a breather for a minute so that
yeah,
Sydney and Gail can have the do you want this one or do I want like
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a little stretched time on
yeah.
that one, but just the fact that like when they were doing that and handing a gun to one another, I was just like,
Hmm.
so how does the fire play into
Yeah,
this? It was like
yeah.
they're not shooting a gas line. There's no way they're
And
gonna
that
have
was
that accuracy.
and that was the part that I laughed at for me. Like I thought one of them would just turn on the stove and shove her, and that would be like the end of it. So the
Right.
fact that like the stove somehow got turned on, and then she got shot so that she fell into the stove, and then everything caught on fire was
It
just
was
so many layers.
it was like an immolation Rubik machine. Or it was like
It
yeah.
was very Final Destination. Like it was
It
very like,
was.
what's gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? And then yeah, like I said, like the minute she got hit with it, I figured fire was going to play into it somehow because you can't have somebody coated in a flammable substance and then not be like, yeah, we're gonna light a match.
Well, and then also just the fact that like they really hard cut to a zoom in on the stove turning. Like,
Yep.
it's like okay,
I was like, let's just lead you into this. But yeah,
ridiculous.
it was pretty
Um,
enjoyable.
but yeah, just like it's a weird thing to try to describe this movie as like in comparison to other Scream movies because
Yeah.
I'm more wanting to not even compare it to stuff, just describe that it's like it's well paced. It's like
Hmm.
it's well shot. It's like it feels more like despite the fact that all four of those other movies were directed by Wes Anderson,
Yeah.
Wes Craven.
Yep.
Waiting for Wes Anderson's entry into the Scream franchise.
Yeah. So many
But yeah,
colors.
the diorama sets are so flammable. But the just the fact that like this somehow elevates above what he was able to do
Hmm.
with like how those movies visually are is sort of remarkable, and it's a
Yeah.
like I kind of overuse this phrase a lot for movies that I kind of feel like shouldn't exist, but like this movie feels like a miracle of a movie
Hmm.
because like a Scream movie shouldn't exist and shouldn't be good without Wes
Yeah.
Craven, and
Yeah.
like it's one of those things where it's like the two best Nightmare on Elm Street movies are his, with the first one
Yeah.
and New Nightmare, and like it's
Hmm.
without his
It
touch.
feels wrong. Like it
Right.
feels wrong to enjoy it as much without that you know special sort of like touch to it. I get that.
Yeah, and it's like that's why I think it's kind of a miracle that like not only does this
Mhm.
movie exist, but it like they were able to actually
That it
pull it
did
together
well
in
too.
such a
Yeah.
quality way that it's like,
Yeah.
and that's not a thing like that's not how I talk about Scream movies. It's like
Yeah.
these movies aren't supposed to be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except for maybe the first movie because it is like
Yeah.
such
Iconic.
a film class kind of movie. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I really really love this movie. I think
Yeah.
it again is probably suffering from the I don't want to watch it that often kind of movie,
Mhm.
where like the first movie, the third movie, and then the second movie, like to differing degrees. Like it's those ones are all the first one crazy rewatchable, the second one a little less,
Yeah.
or the third one a little less, the second one a little more or less than that. But like
Hmm.
it's they can't all be that. But I'm just glad that they are making good Scream movies like that.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a thing anymore.
I know, right? That are interesting and funny and yeah, like play into some of the tropes, but also like subvert like some expectations to like a certain degree. I mean, it's a Scream movie. You're kind of you know what you're getting into, and you're
There needs to
watching
be
for
an
the
out
stuff
of the
that
blue
you're.
twist, which
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this case I would say is the Amber twist.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
kind of a non-character through most of the movie. And,
Right?
yeah.
Like, and I think that was the part that I thought was kind of a little bit surprising. But like, even yeah, for her to go from being like the sort of like passive sort of like character to like full-fledged like crazy pants too,
And she does it
that was
like
good.
how I was complaining about Emma Roberts.
Hmm.
This is like the complete opposite. I
Yeah,
love how this one went, because
I
that was
agree.
played more like smug and I'm smarter than you, and it was like
Hmm.
that's not Scream. That's not how this
Yeah,
is supposed to go. Like,
yeah,
sure, they're supposed to feel smarter, but it's supposed to be like, haha, like big
yeah.
ridiculousness. And this
This
is
is
a
like,
way more of that.
yeah, this is like they're honoring it at the same time that they're, wanting to create their own thing, which is so like, contextual for like the film itself, right? Like, they're trying to
Yeah.
honor the past while still encouraging their own sort of like stuff with it, and it works. Like,
And it works on like a very specific level too, because her
mhm,
family lives in Stu's house.
yeah,
And so she is playing the zany Stu character in the
yep,
kitchen at the end, where
hmm,
Jack Quaid is playing the more like
Billy Loomis sort of
contained
like
and like
character. Yeah,
I'm in control. And it's just,
yep,
yeah, the fact that they were able to mirror that so well
yeah,
with, and the that zoom out is so good,
it
because
was
like
so good.
they do, like, honestly, I did not realize that they were in Stu's house, because
No,
they were
no,
shooting it in a way that didn't let us think it was Stu's house. As soon as
yeah,
that reveal happens and they do that slow pan out the front door, all
yeah,
of a sudden all of the camera angles shift to the
oh,
first movie. They're all the
yeah.
same camera angles from the first movie, and it's
It was
so good.
so good. Like, I just loved that. Like, and I think that's the thing. Like, I think if that ending hadn't been as strong and as well done and like just a chef's kiss of like a beautiful ending, the movie would not have been as enjoyable for me
Yeah,
as what it was.
absolutely.
Like, oh, just that part, like, because I mean the rest of it, even like as they're all sitting around discussing like the requel, it was so hard not to roll my eyes in for a lot of it. Like, it was so hard. I was like, I know that
Yeah,
you
I
guys are
mean,
getting at like this
it's ham
fandom sort of like
fisted.
stuff, but like,
Yeah,
oh,
but it's like at this point, pretty much everyone involved is Randy.
mm-hmm,
There's no
mm-hmm,
more Randy of the movie. It's just
yeah.
everyone's Randy. Everyone understands. And so,
Which is
yeah,
like, I think that's such a commentary like on fandom, like to so many levels too, right? It's like everybody feels like they own a piece of this just by being interested in it, and everybody feels like they have an opinion, and that's kind of the culture that fandom is. So having even that conversation where all of them are sitting around like dissecting all of it was just, brilliant for kind of being in there at the same time, right? Because you're watching like a
and
bunch of film nerds discuss exactly
well,
what everybody would do
what's great
anyways.
about that specific moment too is that that is happening with two of the characters that they have now introduced, who are
Hmm.
Randy's niece and nephew,
Yeah.
which is like that's where I think like they're connecting these things in a way that
Hmm.
could be a little heavy-handed, but like it's heavy-handed in a good way because it's
Yeah.
Scream. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't be happier with how this movie turned out, because
Yeah.
it is like an all-timer for like these legacy sequels. Like,
Hmm.
I think Halloween 2018 is, we will ignore Halloween Kills. But I think Halloween 2018 is the best slasher movie of all time now. Like, it is an outstanding work of cinema, not just like
Really
it's a good
enjoyed it
horror
too.
movie.
Yep.
And that's another one that I missed when it came out, just because of like certain circumstances in life at the time. But like,
Oh, I watched that one at the Toronto International Film Festival, like on its like world premiere.
that's
That was a
awesome.
great night.
That
Like,
crowd
it was,
was
oh,
probably awesome.
oh, it was pretty fabulous. And like, yeah, like Jamie Lee Curtis was there, and like, she's a goddess, like as it is anyways. But like,
She
yeah,
handed
like,
Activia yogurt to
oh,
everybody.
I mean, she might as well have for the enthusiasm that was in the crowd. Let's put it that way. But like, yeah, it was just, I think if I hadn't watched it maybe in that sort of like environment, it would have probably hit a little bit less for me. But it
I
like,
don't honestly, I
again,
don't think it would have hit
oh,
less, because I watched it right before Halloween Kills came out
yeah,
at home by myself in the middle of a pandemic, and it
Mm-hmm.
still hit crazy hard for me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that it still would have hit hard for you. It's you just have like a Pearly Gates version of
Machine
that
like
now.
over it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Basically, yeah.
it still would have hit. Just, you know,
I
not the
love
Hollywood
these
version.
yeah, I love these like talking about like the final girl and stuff like that too, and comparing like Laurie's journey to a certain extent and like Snee's journey as well. Like I love how they've taken both of those and kind of like yeah, like reclaimed the final girl, I guess you could say, in certain ways. Like and even the end of this one
And
having
fleshed it
like
out, I
Billy
think, is
Loomis,
like the big,
like I
yeah.
was gonna say even like having Billy Loomis's daughter essentially the daughter of like as she says herself a daughter of a serial killer, like you do not want to mess with her. Having her be sort of the final girl in that sense too is a really interesting way that these films have changed like over time as well, where it's
Yeah.
like you're more so cheering for and like they openly discuss
You're
murdering somebody.
you're cheering, it's the Spider-Man final swing moment. This is
Hmm.
he's like got the goblin right there, and he's
Hmm.
about to kill him, but he holds back. This is them going, no, he kills him. And it's like it's still a hero moment,
Yep.
but it's just it like that's the like the suspension of disbelief of like
Yeah. Yep.
you're rooting for somebody to murder somebody, but
To a
like
certain extent. I mean,
yeah.
like, especially when she got it, I think it was like the 20th stab. I was definitely sitting there being like, how are the cops going to take this?
Yeah, it's like,
Like, you can only stab somebody so many times before they're kind of like,
well,
maybe
that's
this wasn't self defense.
I was thinking Sydney and Gail were going to walk in and be like, okay, okay, okay,
Yeah,
and like
like,
pull her up,
are we done?
and she was gonna be like emotional, and she was standing there like
Yeah,
arms akimbo, like
yeah.
I did it.
Just full scale, like, yeah. And I don't, like, at the same time, I really enjoyed that sort of like twist on it, I guess you could say too, where like, you know, she's the one that has become the killer, sort of like in that sense. And I don't, it's interesting, like I said, to see how like the final girl changes in that sort of like way, because instead of being like she manages to sort of like take it out, like there's real glee in her murdering this guy. Like,
Yeah, and that's one of the fascinating things about like how a shot or how a scene comes together is just like
mhm.
they shot that as if she was doing the reveal kill at the
Yeah, like
beginning of the movie.
or like they shot it like she was wearing the ghost faced outfit, like
Yeah.
just full scale. Like even like the shot of the knife coming up and everything else like that was very ghost face in a lot of ways. So it was interesting that they went that hard with her murdering him.
And it like it sticks out really hard the ghost face thing when she wipes the knife, because that
Yes,
it's
yes.
the same way that it's done in the first movie, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting because it is just like it's the way it's shot, it's the angles being
Yeah.
almost the same, but just like a little more low angle from the front where like
Mm-hmm.
she is the heroic figure, and like
Yeah.
the lighting not being
Yeah.
as like dark and like covered in shadow as
Yeah.
the intro stuff would be, and so it is legitimately shot like like as if it was Ghostface but a superhero version of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
very cool thing to like
Yeah.
just figure out how they did it.
And I thought it was going to be a little bit weird having her see visions of like Billy Loomis, but I don't know. I got on board with that really quick. Like it was just fun to
The
see him
first
back,
one was
even if
weird.
it
The
was
second one
yeah,
was like, you know what, I'm in.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
we're just going with this. Like sure, your dead father figure like talks to you as a creepy like schizophrenic ghost. Like why not? Like
And the de-aging on Skeet Ulrich was actually
yeah,
very good. It was very good.
yeah, yeah. No complaints. I enjoyed that aspect of it very much because it was a fun way to reintroduce him back in without making it be like, oh, did he actually die? Like,
Well, and it gives legacy to a character that has only had lore legacy since the first movie. So I like that they're giving a Loomis the Sydney treatment now. So
yeah, it was fun for them to kind of like do it that way. Like I appreciated that, where, you know, I think they were going for that little like, oh, maybe she's actually the killer if she's like crazy pants, and instead having it just be like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
On one random note, her sister being named Tara super threw me off for the entirety of the movie. Having a name like Tara, I don't hear it often in like film and stuff like that. So
yeah, I
say,
can't really relate to that as a Michael.
Yep.
As a person with the
And a lot
most
of them,
popular
sure.
boy's name from 1942 through 2007. So
it took me far out of like the first half of the film because they say Tara an inordinate amount of time.
yeah.
There's a lot of Taras in that first section of this movie. I just remember the first one. It was just
it's
like,
got to be
weird.
Cool to have the Ghostface voice saying your name.
It was, yep. If I ever, get into a really YouTube sort of personality thing, that's probably what I would do for some of it. But it was very. It took me out of like some of it, just having it be like constantly hearing your own name. It was a new sensation for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And then once she's like kind of put to the side for a little while, then they're talking about her, and it's like, oh right, that is her name.
Yeah. It's just, it felt like a drinking game for a while. It was like, drink every time you hear Tara, because
there
was a lot.
You will die. Yeah.
It's surprising.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we'll call it on this one. But thank you again for coming on both of these episodes of this to talk about
Thank you for
having me. If I come across another franchise in this very genre of horror, I will try to get you to come back in for it. So
I would love to.
Perfect. All right. Well, just a reminder for everybody. We have podcasts on this channel and on this, the podcast audio only feeds. We have reaction videos on the YouTube channel. So if you could like the video, if you like these episodes, if you subscribe to them, it would help me out a great deal. Help spread the shows out, helps get a little bit more of an audience on them. And yeah, other than that, thanks again. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.